We don't do shortcuts. There are also MROs that are trying to seek shortcuts, and if it's not written, it means it's not forbidden, So sometimes they understand things like that.
We have the right side covered, yeah. We have a middle Europe. We were just missing some hangar in the left side of the map, yeah. Reaching new customers, reaching new regions, and kind of again just sharing and expanding our knowledge, our expertise.
Their choice of outsourcing maintenance is based on the new agreement with union, because they have in-house MRO. And there was an agreement reached between the airline and the union that they can't outsource more than X percentage of checks to some third-party MROs. So it's also a combination of political factors, but also on some business, decisions as well.
Now, something that you brought up, Vilius, turnaround times. Obviously, for any airline, looking for MRO, looking for that maintenance service, maintenance provision, one of the most important things that they're going to be focused on is turnaround times, right? Regardless of, whichever MRO organization is servicing their fleet, helping with their fleet management, turnaround times is always the most important. What is turnaround, or give a comparison of how these turnaround times are influenced between or amongst the different organizations? Vila, from your side.
Different organizations, you mean the
different MRO organizations? Yeah, their approach to turnaround time.
Yeah. So again, this is a really important thing. Was their approach to the maintenance standards? Let's say. So we don't do shortcuts. We know that there are quite some MROs in the market that we also respect, and they're also don't doing shortcuts. But on the other hand, there are also MROs that are trying to seek shortcuts, and if it's not written, it means it's not forbidden, So sometimes they understand things like that. So of course, it depends also on the aircraft type, age, check scope. But it's depending also on your preparation and readiness. So again, there are MROs who are investing lots and lots into the equipment, lots and lots into trainings and so on and so forth. And if the aircraft is coming for, 12-year check, if the MRO has already the zero stress equipment, because they know that they're going to have the wing skin, inspection, or overhang panel inspection, or even frame 4, inspection. So they're preparing for that. They're having the equipment there, especially for the frame 4 or center post, which now is really brilliant training from Airbus team. So you don't have to replace the whole frame, or you just mill out the crack and install
fitting,
and install the stiffeners here. So it saves lots of time and lots of money as well. So it's about MRO preparation, how they're prepare for that. Because if you don't even have hydraulic cart in your hangar and you're selling the 12-year check, and you're on paper you have the capability to do that, but the reality doesn't come. Yeah. So no, it's so what about the TT? So it's negligent. But of course there are efficient MROs that are doing that preparations, and we discuss every conference, share insights. We even do visits between competing MROs, because the market, it allows us to exchange some good thoughts. So some MRO representatives are coming to us, we show around, we come to them, so we exchange some good ideas. I think that's a good thing. So it brings some good.
That stems very nicely, Andrejus, into something that you mentioned before, which was, as you're performing some of these checks, and let's say this aircraft has a history of having gone to, let's say, some other third parties who weren't as detailed and as intricate in their process, and then you discover that, there's actually there's a problem with this aircraft that shouldn't be there, but because this check wasn't done properly by a previous provider, now we have to deal with it. What's your perspective of that, and how whether it's TAT, the service quality, again, keeping in mind the triangle you mentioned, fast, cheap, or done with quality. What's your perspective on the influence on turnaround times?
So unfortunately, this shady previous maintenance quality and so on, this cannot be put easily on paper, just to show how you see if you do that. But here we can, with our experience, we can obviously see when something was done incorrectly or insufficiently. Maybe the corrosion protective compound was not applied evenly, and it shows. And of course, we, as an MRO, if we would be a very cheap labor and so on, we would just reapply on the corrosion, everything good, close everything up and go. Yeah, and release the aircraft after 2 years is going to be even worse. But we are kind of worrying about the airworthiness of aircraft. So we're going to stop. We're going to start fixing it. Very likely extending VTAT. And as well, we are keeping ourselves quite, not maybe pessimistic, but realistic. Yeah. So if we get the aircraft, which we do not know, or the airline, we can expect some bigger issues, which usually some different MROs are just glossing about because it's going to extend VTAT, it's going to be very costly. So yeah, we actually usually prepare the equipment, prepare the staff for, not the worst case scenario, but more serious cases, especially on the new customers.
I think just on that point, transparency, being transparent, being clear, having clarity is something that I think any operator or airline or any business in the world would value from getting from a service provider. Because, the last thing you would want is to have a provider tell you, oh, we can get this done in a day, but the actual work that needs to be done is a week. Or, for this check, it's going to take a week, but the actual time and period that needs to be done on that asset or on that aircraft is a month's time to fully service it to the quality. Vilius, I know you wanted to add something there. I cut in. Yeah.
No, we can proceed. So Andrejus has covered a lot. It was just a thought that we had experience when the aircraft are coming from the same operator, the same aircraft from very early age. I don't know, 2-4 years old. So very first checks, and it's being maintained only by us. And we saw a drastic, difference. That you can really precisely plan the downtime, the ratio of non-routine of the defects, compared to some aircraft that is coming to your facility being, 18-20-year-old, being done by many different MROs who has many different approaches to procedures, quality, and just maintenance philosophy. And at the end of the day, you are the guilty one that the aircraft has that many defects because it has that many defects, but you can't close your eyes.
They're not defects that were caused by you, rather than defects caused over time.
Exactly. So due to some
moving from hand to hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. So and you have to deal with that.
On that point, where and you've mentioned it very nicely, where again you have this customer and you were dealing with the aircraft from a very young age. Segues very nicely into my next question, which is what then, for an airline to then go and choose an independent MRO, right? One, what are they looking for, and what are they expecting? Or maybe if I position this a little bit different is, what motivates or incentivizes, or not incentivizes, but rather, gives airlines that confidence of going to independent MRO providers?
So I think there are different airlines that has different approaches to the MROs and what they expect from those MROs. Because some airlines, especially ultra low-cost carriers, so of course they're seeking for really aggressive downtimes, good pricing, and of course good quality. So trying to cover all the triangle, it's not always that easy to do so, but yes, they're looking for that. There are some airlines that are looking for extremely high level of quality without really some not standard level of quality and short turnaround times, but they're also willing to pay. And the procedures that we also get from them, there sometimes we have never seen those. So I think Andrejus had a good line of checks of that customer, but you learn from that, and it makes really sense. But because even after the check, they're sending the 3 persons, senior like inspectors, to check the quality of the heavy maintenance check, doing reclining each seat, measuring milliseconds how fast the rudder pedal goes to 0 position, those crazy things, opening all overhead bins, measuring by millimeters if they're all completely in line. So that's a bit different approach, and those customers, they seek for efficient,
that quality.
Yeah, but the quality, but they also understand that it costs a fortune. So it's a bit different mix. We have, let's say, a variety of the customers, especially with low-cost carriers, which are flying with younger fleets. So we have that smaller checks, lighter checks, which are spanning 4.5, 7 days checks. The aircraft are between 1.5 to 4 years or 5 years old. So they're not that prone into some really heavy defects. They don't bring with themselves some structural damages. So basically you can turn around them quickly. You align the process really efficiently, and the mathematic and Excel spreadsheet shows, green. So you can work on that. But it's a bit different story on the more complex checks from the ultra low cost carriers, because also, they would expect not to pay more than X amount. So.
And Andrejus, again, Vilius brought up quite some interesting, like technical factors, but quality, those quality check factors. And this is something that you experience, right? What's your view, not view, but what's your experience of that, right? From the time an aircraft comes into the hangar to the time that it leaves, or rather to the time that it leaves, but having been inspected by the client, what's your experience of that, and how, again, still staying on the path where an airline seeks out the services of an independent MRO?
So actually, speaking about that airline and the quality checks of the bins and all the rudder pedals, indeed, I have been working with that airline, and that airline does some quality checks in the technical, in the structural, in the paperwork side as well. It's not just passenger cabin, how does it look, like the passenger convenience, how we call it. And actually, I consider myself quite technically educated guy, but this airline brought a lot of good points to me, to my team, and to our internal procedures, how we should look from a little bit another angle, yeah. Because usually we focus on the airworthiness of aircraft, so just to minimize OG, yeah. So the system should work, structural damage should be repaired, but everything else, like the placards, like some seals, aerodynamic seals, I mean, they can impact the fuel efficiency of the flight. It's gonna be just a little bit small part, but you can add that up.
But I guess it builds up, right? Multiple little inefficiencies can build up, and then all of a sudden you've got an aircraft that's less fuel efficient if things aren't done right.
Exactly, even some adjustment of the flight control surfaces. So a manufacturer says the limits are like that. But the airline can say, no, the limits,
vibration, especially, on
the engine vibration.
Yeah. The limits are that, but as per airline procedure, it has to be that margin.
Yeah, and actually, then you can't agree with the airline, and you think, wow, you guys are quite experienced, so yeah, go ahead and like coach us. Yeah.
I guess it lends very nicely into your MO, right, as an independent provider, because again, you are working together with the airline, right, and their procedures, right? You're adopting their procedures, you're following them, you're making sure that they get the quality that they want to have at the at the level that they want to have it. And Vilius, as you also mentioned, if they're willing to pay more because they know that no, this is the level of quality that we want, and this is the service at the end of the day that we want to deliver to our clients. So I guess it lends very nicely into your profile of being able to tailor to to those different clients and their different requirements, which goes very nicely into our next area of discussion here, which is how airlines are approaching tenders. In some cases, it's maybe a bit more aggressive now, right? Especially on the quality aspect. What have you seen? And I'll come to you, Vilo, with this one, and how they're approaching that.
So again, it's a very, as from my sales side, I see it's like a cycle. Either it's buyer's market or either it's supplier's market. So it's switching. Now it's more coming to the buyer's market more. Couple of years ago, especially after COVID, it was supplier's market because everyone needed the aircraft back in the year, now and tomorrow, and there's limited capacity, and that backlog allowed MROs to dictate the conditions of the market. Now it's a bit switching
back to the buyer's market.
Back to buyer's market again, yes, but still the tendency is that they're trying to still secure quite a big time frame of the slots, 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. So for us as independent MRO, I would say it's a bit maybe too risky, because you don't really know what happens. But again, it's always different to the conditions of the RFP. If we're renegotiating, but normally all airlines wants to fix the pricings and fix the capacity.
And actually on that point, in terms of some of the factors that you're seeing on the market, I mean, is it price pressure? Is it flexibility, shorter deadlines? I mean, what are you seeing in the market?
So again, as we're switching more to buyer's market, it's again pricing. It's a pressure on the lower prices. Again, the TT, because again, during COVID, no one cared really about TT. They wanted to save as much money as possible, and for those who had some flights or whatever, so they needed only X amount of the aircraft. So the TAT was somewhere in the far behind. Now it's getting again back to number 1 or 2, price, TT, quality. So the TT is again very, very important factor for the airline, as we say. But again, there's an unknown coming to in place. It's leasing companies again, so they will most probably will mix things, again. Oh, but we'll see. But for now, everyone is focused to having the long-term contract, fix the pricing, and build their operations onto that, without any expectations of turbulence in the market. I mean, for the airline.
But in some ways, I guess you still stay flexible, right? You still stay flexible to any market changes that may come about. Because rightfully, as you mentioned, where something in the market can change, where, it may, using your analogy, it may switch it back to a supplier's market or a buyer's market. So yes, right now, as you mentioned, everyone may be, focused on the long-term contracts, but there must be some flexibility that you still keep, to be able to cater to any changes in the market that might happen.
Sure. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying it's a bit risky to sign the, 10, 20 year contract, because you don't really know what's happened there. Also, there is a thing that it can demotivate the team as well, because if it's wrong choice, if it's wrong decision on the customer, your 20 years marriage with the wrong guy, so in your hangar, so you have to pick wisely. So from our side, we try to stay away from very long-term commitments, because when you are signing for that long period, you're also falling out of the market. You don't understand how the market is reacting, So you have to be always agile, and to understand what's happening where. So we normally sign 1-2 year contracts. We have some also longer term contracts, but we try not to have that 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years, because again you're taking some risks that you could not assess right now. So
And actually, we're gonna start looking more like the in-house MRO, yeah. And we got all the pros and cons, so even technical stuff can get complacent already with the same fleet, the same aircraft, always same problems, for example, yeah. Yeah, it's not really good for growth.
You brought in something quite interesting there about keeping the team motivated, right? And as I'm beginning to understand more, or understanding it deeper now, where again, as an independent MRO, one, you've got a various number of a diversified client portfolio, and for your teams as well, they get the opportunity to work on various different aircraft types. In some ways, that keeps their skills current, right? They get a chance to really explore the engineer's journey of doing aircraft maintenance, not just on one fleet type, but on multiple different fleet types. So how do you see your teams? And now we're coming to more a personnel aspect. How do you see your teams operate in the perspective, right? Are they, what drives them? How are they operating from an independent MRO perspective? Maybe Andrejus.
take this one.
Yeah, so again, you told very good points about different fleets, different aircraft, different ages of aircraft, very different defects, modifications, procedures, even different external paint specifications. They are like just the knowledge is growing of the guys. So even our neighbor MROs are usually asking us, "Oh, did you have this defect on this aircraft?" And we actually, yeah, we did. Yeah, you can look over there. Yeah, because our neighbor MRO is servicing newer aircraft, so we didn't get that, the old defect. And of course, that experience, since we are quite global, so we're sharing that experience between all our bases, be it in Scotland, Indonesia, and in the future in the Dominican Republic. And yeah, the knowledge is quite good. Of course, it's not written anywhere, but just, in the people.
And from Vilo?
Yeah, and from my side as well, because it's not always the most profitable contract is a best choice. We're also asking the feedback from Andrejus, from technical team, from all post holders, to, let's say, share their thoughts on the customer, because on paper it can look really nice numbers, everything, but in reality there is no chemistry between the teams. So there's another thing that keeps the team motivated is also good customer support, aircraft as well, because sometimes they say, oh, those aircraft are rubbish, we don't want to have them and to work on them anytime soon. Bring us this and that. So we're also always having to try to find that good common ground point between profitable contract and good customer with good support that also keeps the team motivated.
And especially the decision making of a customer of airline key people, the supply chain, how fast does it spin? Yeah, do we perform the billet-in or we replace? Some quick decisions, usually they contract the turnaround time. Some customers have such a complicated command chain that it just takes weeks, to reach a decision, and we just
because
sit on our hands.
Because the managers and the technical team, they want to have the work done and not to chase for some decision. Give us things to work, tools to work, parts,
especially components. Component supply is, especially for the shorter checks, 4 to 6 days. If you found some kind of defect, this check is going to be in jeopardy. Unless customer already prepared for that, well, yeah,
Yeah, and this, approach is also encouraging the team to also make an extra step, extra mile always. You know, if they won't say, it's 7 p.m. and arrivederci, they said, okay, we are going to release it still today because you asked us, this also a relationship. So we have had bad representatives, we have seen those, but we also had really good ones, and we still have really good ones. So we had cases when one person was responsible from customer side on 2 parallel maintenance lines. So, those kind of people, they are pros, they know what to do, and they just let the team to work, not to chase them for some decision or whatever. So also part of, motivation.
So what I'm getting there is that there's also responsibility from the airline side as well, in how they approach their maintenance procedures, the representatives that they send for the quality checks, right? They can also influence, let's say, the turnaround time, or how, as you mentioned, the bay is maybe working on how certain procedures go. I want to come to, again, still on this aspect of personnel and your workforce, and really just right down to the engineers. Now, when you look at the aviation market today, the main talk when looking at personnel is that there's always a pilot shortage. That's something that's quite highlighted in the industry. But from an MRO perspective, there's engineers, mechanic, technicians, right? There's also demands, and Vilius, as you put it, of having hands in the hangars, hands in the within your MRO infrastructure for them to run. How have you experienced what they would call the technician shortage or mechanic shortage? Have you experienced it? How have you navigated it? Maybe Andrejus, I'll start with you, because you did mention earlier that you retained your talent, right? How have you navigated this current situation in the market where they say there's a bit of a shortage?
So this situation is stemming from the increase of aircrafts. So it's the same we need of a pilot, of a cabin, and a flight crew, and everything. But personally, in our company, at least until we decided to grow to a different region, we kind of stayed more or less fixed, maybe one more additional aircraft. So it wasn't such a huge demand, because we kind of short on the real estate, on the hangar space, yeah. But especially with the new base in the Dominican Republic, I me personally felt that shortage of people, because we start with zero, and we kind of need to find. But of course, the experienced engineer market in the Latin America, in the North America, it is quite big. So the choices were, we need to decide, are they qualified enough to carry our standards, our expected work.
And Vilius, from your perspective as well, in terms of now, let's say, coming to a signed contract, right, or fulfilling a contract, knowing that, okay, we have the hands in our facilities the hands and the standards and all the suppliers, and we're ready to fulfill that. How have you navigated that from your, let's say, commercial perspective, in terms of maybe a client might come in and they've got a concern, or they might ask a question that, oh, are you capable of doing this? But, there's a shortage right now in the market. How are you navigating that from your side?
So I think there is no now silver bullet, to solve that situation of shortage of technicians. It's now, a matter how and who and how quick we can, grow them. So I think our team, our colleagues are really working hard on that thing. So also we respect other, players in the market, like our neighbors as well. They're really putting lots of efforts in preparing the mechanics, and we also took some good ideas from theirs. So it's nice to see that. But still now it's a question how to retain those people within our organization. So obviously, it's salaries. You have to be attractive. Of course, good thing. It was kind of a recent audit, and I have maybe it's first time I've heard this kind of feedback from one of our customers. Said, well, we just checked your documents. They were doing some audit of our company, and said, guys, I think you're a bit overstaffed. So this really, yeah, comparing to what we see in other MROs, is you're just a bit overstaffed. So okay, I'll bring this good news to our management, that we're a bit overstaffed. But jokes aside, you have to keep the good skills here, especially sheet metal and composite guys, because yes, new aircraft are coming to the market, but still a lot of old aircraft are still coming to us, and they will still be coming. We just recently had discussion on the third 12-year check on A320. So it is, well, we haven't done any of that, and I don't believe that any MROs still have maybe one or two checks they've been done. So the aircraft is around 36-year-old. So it's third structure check, and yes, we have done second structure check, and we have found some really nice and difficult defects. So you have to still retain good structural team, good composite sheet metal team.
And that aircraft is gonna require some tough love, and experience love.
On the topic of retention, right? Especially retention in comparison to an in-house MRO and an independent MRO. What's the dynamics there in terms of retention of that skilled work of your mechanics, of your technicians and engineers? Is there a difference? Could you describe it, maybe, Andrejus, with you?
So I believe for the in-house MRO, of course, the main benefit are usually the flight packages. Yeah. So most of the time, the technical staff has some kind of discount for the flights on that airline, or maybe jump seat, just airport charges, and so on. But for example, for the third party, of course, as we talked before, is the work is very diverse, new customers and so on. So your experience grows exponentially. But at the end of the day, of course, it's going to be money. It's going to be the same either in-house or independent, and as well the location. So especially local people, for example, here as Lithuanians, if they get enough money, there is no reason for them to go to another country to work, because the location, your family, and so on.
And Vilo, any view from your side, and in particular, I wanted kind of chip back into your history and also tie into location, because for your history, you started off, as a mechanic. Now you went to commercial, so there was an opportunity for you to be able to transition that way. And then also looking, Andrejus, I know you're working on the Punta Cana project, but from an independent MRO aspect, because you have facilities in multiple different continents, multiple different countries, maybe there's an opportunity for people to be able to work in different locations if they want to experience MRO, from a varied sense. So Vilius first, and then I'll come back to you, Andrejus.
Yeah, so I think still it's nice to get those perks, in the world, some discounts or whatever, some incentives from the company. But again, at the end of the day, you have to pay the bills. So it's, I think, the salary what decides what you're going to do. So again, if you're being paid well here, why to look elsewhere? But still, we have like a program because during the summertime, so people want to also travel as well. So we're trying to give opportunity to go to our line maintenance stations, to go to our other facilities,
and especially younger people.
Yeah, younger people. They want to also see some world, to try working elsewhere. So we're trying to give that opportunity. And again, it's a thing that motivates you. So to also give possibilities to grow, and to give possibilities to try maybe also a new role. It's also another thing. We have many stories that mechanic went there, engineering, DOA, training, sales, whatever. So also possibilities, they tend to also motivate, especially younger people.
Yeah, of course, new connections as well, new people, new experience, new aircrafts even. So, for example, on Prestwick, it's a single base in the Technics where we can service the wide-body aircraft, 330 or 787. So, for young guys, even for guys like me, I would love to at least touch, the aircraft from the engineering side.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of.
And you brought up the topic of, young talent, young engineers coming into the market. Now, obviously, yes, they want to travel more, which would be, which is a great, great prospect. But at the same time, in terms of attracting them, because now it's a very different, you could say it's a different generation, a different environment in the sense that a lot more younger people are, either influenced by digital influences, technology, right? How are you reaching out to them in terms of that pipeline, right? That pipeline of future engineers. What are some of the strategies or, methods that you've seen work in terms of getting in front of them, right? And trying to attract them into the organization?
So actually, at least in Lithuania in recent years, in all of us aviation team schools, they actually had quite an increase of applicants, of students. I'm not sure why, but I believe maybe it's the rise of Microsoft Flight Simulator, which was released in 2020. I mean, it kind of sounds like it, but it looks like the aviation, it just looks more accessible to everyone. If you are finishing high school, you kind of thinking already, you can think about the aviation. And the young people, of course, they are addicted to digital stuff, But here, the aircraft are digital. All our documentation and procedures usually are on the computers, digital, so.
Or you bring VR goggles and drone.
Yes.
Sold.
And you can inspect the light instruction.
Artificial intelligence and virtual reality. Yes.
Oh, yeah. They had some. We have some of that. So, retaining the young talent, they usually are so excited to learn new things, and it's like.
And how are you seeing that, Vilo, from your perspective as well?
Same, young people, they like technologies, they like something new. So you have to attract them from that, perspective as well, because also the aircraft are changing, so you have to, highlight that, it's not only some old school technology, so it's also an interesting, and kind of digitalized, unit. Yeah, so what you're working at, and yeah, so I think from that perspective, to make it more let's say interesting for that generation.
An attractive aspect of that, and now we come back to Punta Cana, right, which was mentioned quite a lot, during this interview. Andrejus, you're working that, and being in the Dominican Republic, one, you've got sunny weather, you've got the white sandy beaches that are there, but again, that could be a prospect that's quite attractive. Something else that's also quite interesting, right, is your expansion in the Dominican Republic, in Latin America, and in North and South America, specifically investing to develop in the Dominican Republic, Punta Cana. What led to this development, and how is it going?
Yeah, so first of all, just to extend our reach, yeah. So if you look at our map, the macro projection of a map, we have a right side covered, yeah. We have a middle, Europe. We were just missing some hangar in the left side of the map, yeah. So basically, yeah, reaching new customers, reaching new regions, and kind of again just sharing and expanding our knowledge, our expertise to another side of the world. And regarding the exact place why it was chosen in the Caribbean, not exactly sure, but I think the weather, and the white beaches were playing
Yeah,
about.
it's good that you're honest.
I mean, I think I didn't choose that, but yeah.
No, but there must be some strategic relevance, and maybe I'll position it this way: where, again, as I'm looking at your profile as an independent provider, as you now you're covering the whole map, right? The right side and the left side, where when you are going to clients, you can, you've got that profile of having that experience of operating in different regions, having the depth and the expertise of being able to navigate different regulatory environments, different governing authorities, different, or even down to, if we say weather, again, there are different weather factors you have to consider, whether you're doing maintenance in the southern hemisphere or in the northern hemisphere. So paint that picture for us of the relevance, the strategic relevance, the positioning, the location, on why. And maybe I'll start with Vilius.
Yeah, about the location. So it's a right spot, to reach both continents here. So of course, the key customers that we're seeing in that region, in that market, in that facility, is Northern America. So the tier 1 airlines. So they're flying also to southern part, to central part of America. So there is no issue for them to come for the maintenance to Dominican Republic. But at the same time, we are also able to reach the southern part, which also has quite a lot of number of players. They also have big fleets, and they're looking interesting for us as well. So basically, that's a good reach, a good combination to go here and there. Of course, aviation, let's say MRO business is still new for Dominican Republic. So that's challenge for Andrejus.
So you're pioneering, you're leading the way, so to say. Okay.
Because so far there weren't any MROs that were doing any heavy maintenance so far in Dominican Republic. No, let's say heavy maintenance certificates license there. So we'll be the pioneers there. And naturally, the same comes to preparation of workforce of people. So it's also very fresh. But we're working quite actively and having, I think, a solid plan there. So yeah, but again, to go to that specific region, it's going to be new for us, especially the way of thinking of the customers, because so far we haven't done any check there yet, but we'll already see some difference in approach towards the maintenance. So we see that most of those I would say top 5 airlines from the Northern America, we tend to outsource Airbus A320 type mostly, because this is, let's say, not natural for them, because they're Boeing country, let's say, Boeing field. So they're trying to outsource some more A320s rather than 73s. And there was one good discussion with also one of top 5 airlines. They said, guys, you know how to maintain, the aircraft, to do the 12-year check, 6-year check. Yeah, we have number of those. Every year we have number of those. We had those type of defects, we have prepared the tooling, everything. Yeah, it's really nice, but our 12-year check is a bit different to what you imagine to your 12-year check. It's they said it's completely different type of defects, completely different aircraft utilization. So guys, you should be prepared, because we had this lesson that some MRO expanded also in that region, bringing some European know-how, bringing lots of maintenance know-how, but still it was some kind of surprise for them that this is the and procedure and maintenance and aircraft shape and condition. So guys, you should be prepared. So it's a bit different. So but until we try, we can't really tell how it's actually like.
But I mean, we are always prepared for the surprises and the realistic case. So yeah, we expect something different.
Talk to me about that. In particular, talk to me about the scale of the operation, right? Of the facility itself, the capacity that you'll be able to manage. Yeah, let's start there, Andreas.
Okay, so actually the construction is being completed for 5 bays. So 5 narrow-body aircrafts. So expecting Boeing 737 family and Airbus 320 family. At a later date, it's gonna expand to 12 bays. And lastly, I believe it's gonna be expand to 20 bays total. So 2 more expansions are in the market.
The pipeline, yeah.
In a pipeline, yeah. And in addition to the aircrafts, of course, we'll have shops, internal shops, structural, composite, interior, carpets, and so on. We're gonna have a warehouse inside the facility nearby, and all the people, all the offices, everything is gonna be centrally located, and it's gonna be at the very unpopular side of airport, which is not busy, because nearby our neighbors are gonna be just a small cargo facility with, I think, two parking places for the aircraft and us. So it's gonna be no traffic jams, either.
And it's a bit of difference what we have in Europe. I mean, in terms of facility layout. In Europe, everything is packed, squeezed, and you don't have the luxury to put, side by side bay. And comparing to Punta Cana, so there is, let's say, more flexibility to that. So we're going to have the side by side bays, comparing to what we have in Europe, where
Like here, yeah.
like here, that you sometimes have to puzzle things out.
We should build the jigsaw puzzle. What I'm getting, from this conversation is that there's a lot of forward thinking done into your expansion to Punta Cana. Obviously, the scale, as you mentioned, 5 bays to 12, and then to 20 at some point. And Vilius, as you brought up as well, kind of knowing the clients that are going to be there, right? And as you said, the 12-year check that you may experience on in the eastern, shall I say, the eastern hemisphere is different from the 12-year check that might be experienced, in the western hemisphere. It being different defects, different utilization for the aircraft. Now, we've spoken about a number of different topics today, right? About MRO, the different organizations across MRO, in-house, independent, and some of those third parties. We've talked about talent. We've talked about some of the differences in terms of how these MROs operate, how these MROs attract, retain talent, and overall, what are some of the benefits, pros and cons split across these MROs. As we come to, let's say, a conclusion, but not just a conclusion, and summation of what we've been talking about, what would you say airlines should look for, or what should they focus on when they're seeking MRO provision, the services provided from MRO providers? What should they focus on today?
From my technical perspective, they should focus on quality first. Of course, it's kind of not so easy to focus on, because you cannot, again, do the spreadsheet unless you look at the history of the aircraft, which has been serviced, and see how many days it had an OG, or how expensive the last C-check was, or so on. But usually the airlines do not do that, and they usually just, it's easiest, especially in tenders, then trying to do a tender, it's impossible to measure quality. So you kind of need to know the MRO, be familiar with it. We had some aircrafts, and I believe this is the reason why some of our customers are still coming back to us.
And I think very important aspect is to be well prepared for this quick decisions. It's not that you only demand from the airline, so you should also prepare your operations to have the check done efficiently. So meaning you are well prepared on the components, on modification kits, on the planning side. So the let's say the more solid work scope it is from the quotation to the final stage, the better it is for everyone. So basically you're consistent everywhere, and especially to build a good supply chain. And when we discuss the differences between in-house MROs and third party or independent, so we have seen also very good examples of preparation from the airline, who also has in-house MRO. So we have learned really tons from them. I mean, from material management as well. Openly, it was one of the best, well put processes that I have ever seen as well. I think our procurement team also did the same. So the airline, they have in-house MRO, and it runs properly. I mean, the proper one. It runs properly, and they understand maintenance, and it's easier for you to work with that kind of customer who understands maintenance. Exactly. So they know what decision to be made. They know how to approach the OEM. They know where to press it. They know what will happen when there is, the component. Let's say it's out of the limits, and you have to either source one or whatever. So they're prepared, and it's easier. You're talking the same language. And of course, as Andrejus mentioned, to pay attention to the quality, because sometimes the airline is doing the tender, some airlines are doing tender, and people who are just like contract managers not having technical knowledge, sometimes making the decision, and that decision is not backed up by any technical knowledge, by any due diligence. Because we have seen really good examples when the airline is, let's say, shortlisting the MROs, and they're kind of conducting the on-site visits, like assessment of the MRO. Because one thing is what you see on the Part 145 certificate or in the proposal, and the other one, you just come in the facility, look in the eyes of the chief production officer, and you understand it. You're going to have successful season, or you're just done here, so you just see how things are moving here. So it's worth investing some time to come and actually see, rather than picking the cheapest, second cheapest option, like the wine, your second cheapest.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I want to, looking ahead, right? And you mentioned a very fascinating but also important fact that when an airline has an in-house MRO, they also have a certain understanding, or a better understanding, why they can communicate in the same language if they outsource to an independent MRO for part of their capacity. Looking ahead, what do you see? How do you see the market in terms of what's going to be dominating? Is it going to be in-house or outsourced MRO, or there's a more, if we come to this term here, a hybrid, where again you see these airlines who do have their own in-house, but they also choose to and rely on that independent MRO capacity. What's the outlook? How do you see that forming in the future?
I think it will still be a mix. But we will also see the attempts to in-source, I mean, to perform as much in-house maintenance as possible. So maybe the tendency will go like that. For example, in Southwest Airlines, I believe, so they had their choice of outsourcing maintenance is based on the new agreement with union, because they have in-house MRO. And there was an agreement reached between the airline and the union that they can't outsource more than X percentage of checks to some third-party MROs. So it's also a combination of political factors, but also on some business, decisions as well. But the low-cost carriers, I believe, they will still be going towards, let's say, securing and controlling their maintenance and increasing some capacity of their own. But still, that independent MRO sector, it's going to be there, you want it or not. So,
and very likely it's gonna be growing as well. Yeah, at least in Europe, I believe so.
Yeah.
And if you were to both to give a summary, right, of everything that we've been speaking of, but most importantly, a summary of the different models, right, what an airlines could experience, either working with a third parties, working with an in-house, working with an independent MRO provider. How would you sum all that up? I want to come to you first, Andrejus.
So third party, it's very likely we'll have spare capacity so the airline can, get something serviced, and especially in unforeseeable stuff, like some ADs, some problems. So this is one point from the airline. Regarding the in-house, I believe the airline should approach more of a hybrid model, maybe service some different customers, so at least perhaps they have different cash flows, and sources of the profits. But that's it from my side. Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much same view here from my side as well. So it's nice to have that in-house capacity, but you still have to understand what's happening in the market. So some percentage of outsourced maintenance, I think it's also a healthy thing to do. Of course, in-house from in-house MRO perspective, who answer the question themselves that they're not outsourcing, they're not taking any third-party airlines. So it's a good, stable load for all the employees. It's really stable load, continuous, work like IKEA factory, doing pretty much the same aircraft type, the same checks every year. You have the program from September to May, three months of vacation and back again. But again, it's a risk that they're into is they depend on the airline and how the airline is doing. If the airline is experiencing losses, so they're the ones that are hit the first. Because we have seen quite some examples in the market that the airline is going under, together with the MRO is going down as well. So so this is the risk for them. But again, until it works and runs efficiently, it still is within the market. The costs are not, exponentially through the roof. Then this model works, and this model works for the airlines that they're having really big fleets. For the airlines that they're having, I don't know, 20 aircraft or so, I don't believe in that kind of concept.
So obviously, Vilius, Andrejus, again, we've covered a number of different topics, and you've shared in depth these different models, different operations and how they work. What are you looking forward to the most in your careers, obviously in MRO and how that develops, but as well as with FR Technics as well, as the company goes forward and your careers go forward with the company as well?
So yeah, me personally,
White sandy beach.
white sandy beaches, and of course, brand new regulations. The most interesting, I've been brought up professionally with the EASA regulations. And now we're gonna work with American ones or Latin American ones as well. So Federal Aviation Administration and a bunch of other country authorities. And this is the thing which kind of has the most interest to me, because I can already start comparing, how things are done in that side of the world with respect to the European side. And as Vilius told, North American customers are already telling us what is going to be different. The aircraft is going to be different, defects going to be different, handling of a defect is going to be different. And so yeah, quite excited for my professional journey and there. And of course, bringing along all my technical colleagues with me.
Vilius?
So from my perspective, I believe the key word is again growth, expansion. So we have those really ambitious projects that I'm also very keen to see them up and running and to understanding that part of the world. So in Europe, more or less everything is well known, but there is completely different approach, business etiquette as well. I had one interesting. So in Europe, when you're scheduling a meeting, the counterpart asks for from 30 minutes to 1 hour or even more. in the United States, when we had those conferences, it's either 15 minutes or up to half an hour, and there is no small talk, nothing. That's it. C check, yes. Then, right, that, and that's it. So it's a bit different, and it's something new for me. And again, we're here working in Europe on several new projects. So maybe it will be announced sometime soon. But again, it's kind of exciting, to expand the presence.
Well, Vilius, Andrejus, it's been a pleasure to speak to you both, and looking forward to the next time.
Thank you
for having us.